everybody, and welcome to What Do You Do with a BA in Theater, presented by Dallas Summer Musical's Education and Community Partnerships Department. My name is Seth Johnson, and I'll be your host for this series. Well, we have a wonderful guest today. Aryn, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Aryn Henderson. I grew up in Dallas. I went to school at Columbia College, Chicago, and I am now a working stage manager. I'm currently not working because of the current crisis, but I am a floor manager at the Goodman Theater in Chicago. The Goodman has two different theaters. There's the Albert Theater, which is their main stage sort of proscenium space, and I work in the Owen Theater, which is their smaller black box space.
That's awesome. So what does a floor manager do, for those who don't know?
Totally, yeah. Yeah, so floor managing is sort of a branch of stage managing that not all theaters have for sure. But what the floor manager does at the Goodman, in the larger space, they become basically like a second ASM backstage. The floor manager joins the company the week before we go into technical rehearsals. So they start by helping getting the dressing rooms ready. They get, they set up the cots, they get name tags for the call board, for dressing room doors, making sure schedules are posted everywhere. And then they will be sort of in rehearsal that last week that they're in the rehearsal room and helping them transition into the theater space. So in the Owen, I'm sort of the only representative of stage management backstage. The Goodman is an equity IATSE house, so I'm not allowed to touch any props, any scenery. That has to be all delegated through the crew, which is kind of what my job becomes when we move into tech. Is like, now that I've been the one in the rehearsal room for a week as they've put together this product, I am backstage coordinating with the stage manager via headset and making sure that we have enough crew to making sure that the crew know what they're doing, when they need to do it, and making sure that it's delegated in a way that is manageable for everybody.
Well,
they run the shows.
That's super impressive. I think that's very exciting. So why stage management? What brought you to this wonderful world?
Totally. I started out as an actor. I did performance all through high school, loved musicals, was really involved in all aspects of theater, choir, and then wanted to continue pursuing that. So I did that for a little bit in college for a year and a half or so. And then I made some different friends in different departments. I was working with a guy. I was a resident assistant at, in my school. So I was like overseeing like a floor of students. And one of the people I befriended was a director, and he was friends with the stage manager. And one thing just sort of led to another, and we just really got talking. And so I sort of found out that stage management it married what I did in high school in terms of like the creative artistic side of things with the other thing that I was really interested in, which was like, I was always like organizing the library and stuff and like my music library in high school. And so like it married the creative side with the organizational side that I really enjoyed. So I switched over halfway through my second year of college, and I really just like stuck. It was something that just really clicked with how my brain worked and my understanding of theater.
Well, that's awesome. I've been fortunate to work with you a couple of times.
Yes, you have.
Which has been amazing back in the day when I was a stage manager.
You still could be.
I won't be, though. I have so much respect for what stage managers do, because it is not an easy job, and you do it really well.
So do you.
So how have you seen your stage management experience affect your outside life, your like muggle life?
My muggle life?
Yeah.
Great question. I have been out of college only a year as of right now, so I've been very fortunate to have this job at the Goodman where I'm employed on a season-long contract. And so it's really great to work at an equity theater where I'm kind of doing a 9 to 5 during certain weeks, like that prep week, when everybody's still in rehearsal. It's great to be working during the daytime and like be able to come back home and do my own thing. But like, there's certainly a flip at one point where we get into performance mode and suddenly my days are completely free, but my nights are occupied. But I was talking to my therapist a lot about this recently, about like, you know, when you choose theater, a lot of people I feel like do it, and I certainly did it because it was something I really enjoyed doing. And not all the time do you think about how that impacts, or you don't think about like the day-to-day, what that looks like for pursuing a career in it. And so it's just something you have to think about in terms of, you know, am I okay with having most of my nights free? Like, am I going to be able to, working in an equity theater, it's great because I always have Mondays off. So I can do my laundry, do my shopping, see friends, and have a life on Monday, which is great. But I'm very, very busy, and oftentimes I don't get to go out to drinks or stuff like at normal hours. I can always like grab a drink with somebody like after a show or something. But I have to like make special plans to do that, or like grabbing dinner with somebody downtown between shows. But you know, not everybody can afford to eat downtown on a certain time, you know, and everybody else has their work jobs, work life. And so yeah, it's sort of a balancing act. And I feel like, you know, since graduating, I've really been able to manage it quite well. It's brought me a lot of gratification because I am doing what I love to do and still getting to have those relationships with people outside of theater.
Yeah. So one doesn't just end up in the Goodman Theater. So how has it been like pathwise getting there? What were some of the things that you did to stand out and make yourself like Goodman ready, you know?
Totally. Well, I always credit a friend of mine who was a director. He graduated from my college the year before I graduated. And as he was graduating, there's a senior showcase that was done for designers, directors, and stage managers. And I was just going to go as a friend and support him, and went to go talk and see his stuff, and happened to run into a stage manager there who was currently working at Steppenwolf in Chicago. And Steppenwolf was one of my favorite theaters in Chicago. And so I was like extremely interested. So like we struck up a conversation. She was like, yeah, sure. If you want to come shadow me sometime, like, please do. So I took her up on it. And I shadowed her on a Steppenwolf show, Guards of the Taj, which was so good, by Rajiv Joseph, one of my favorite playwrights, who I actually got to work with this year. So it was just like a wonderful first sort of opportunity. And I did a lot of shadowing my junior and senior year. My stage management professor taught a class where it was required that we went and shadowed 3 different shows. And a lot of people was like, ooh, like, I don't want to do it. Like, it's nervous, it's stressful, but like, it is nervous. It is nerve wracking, and it is sort of stressful to be in the booth with like a professional stage manager, but like you also learn so much while doing it. And so I just kept doing that. And I've gone to New York a couple times and tried to shadow people there. And just getting, it's not even so much about getting your foot in the door, but like interacting with somebody who's been doing this professionally for at least a decade more than I have, like it's a huge learning opportunity. And so I just sort of picked that up and ran with it. And one of my biggest like pieces of advice that I would have for doing that is just like take notes. You know, it's not because of the nature of the stage management job, it's not always an appropriate time to ask questions, but like if you take notes, I like to like circle things that like I want to definitely ask questions about. And they will usually ask you like, do you have any questions? And so I certainly had questions after I'd finished shadowing the stage manager, and we just got to talking, and at the end of it, she was like, keep in touch, basically. And I was like, great. Didn't think a lot of it, but I was like, that's really great, super exciting. I got to like be in the room for the show at Steppenwolf. And then on a whim, just sort of applied to, it was my senior year of college, and I was my final semester, because I had switched and I had a bunch of prep and stuff. I had a bunch of time on my hands, so I was going to apply for an internship just so I could like do a few classes and then like start working in the industry. On a whim, I wasn't even like in the country at the time. I applied to the internship at the Goodman, but hadn't quite finished my application yet. I didn't have all my references in, but because I had worked with that stage manager, who was actually a resident stage manager at the Goodman, she recognized my name, reached out to me for something before I had even listed my availability, and was like, hey, we're looking for an additional intern for this. Are you interested? And it was kind of funny actually, because the way she phrased it, I sort of felt like it was like an offer. But I was like, yeah, sure, absolutely. And she was like, let's chat on this date. And I was like, great. So we chatted and she was like, so tell me about yourself. And it was like very interviewee. And I was like, oh God, we're in an interview now. But fortunately ended up getting the internship, worked on how to catch creation at the Goodman, which was wonderful, a really great experience. And the Goodman is, I don't know if this is unique to the Goodman, but so they have production stage managers and stage managers. And what usually happens is your production stage manager is your calling stage manager, and your stage manager is sort of the ASM role. We were working in the Albert Theater, so the larger space, and the stage manager who like helps with deck stuff sort of goes away, and the floor manager, the position I ended up having, takes over once they get through tech. But yeah, so I did that, and then had a great experience. Made sure to ask for like a post-mortem after my internship, and had great conversation, had a great rapport with both those stage managers. I actually also had I didn't even actually know about this job. It was because the show is very intense, and there was like 2 rotating turntables and just like all this complicated stuff. So there was one day where I think both the stage managers were in the theater while the rest of us were still in rehearsal, working out something with the turntables. And so they had to have a substitute stage manager come in so that they could have an equity stage manager in the room. And she was the one, she also, I don't know if she was a resident stage manager at the time, but she worked a lot in the Owen Theater. And I just I knew the show very well at that point, and was very willing to make myself her point of contact, not point of contact, but point of reference for the show. And after that, she actually pulled me aside and was like, hey, have you considered this? We worked together for 4 hours, and she was like, have you considered applying for this job? And I had not, hadn't even heard about it. So I applied for it. I was pretty set on doing a more apprentice type season-long apprentice learning opportunity my first year out of college. And so I applied to a lot of those. But ended up, the floor manager job, it's a full-time, essentially paid position. They do still say that it's a learning position. They know you're still early in your field, but it's a lot more hands-on than a lot of apprenticeships are. So yeah, I applied for that. I went to the interview, didn't think I got it, but they called me the next day and said they wanted to hire me.
That's awesome. So one of the things that you mentioned in there was a post-mortem. So for people who don't know what that is, how would you describe that?
Totally. A post-mortem can look very different for very different things. So I remember in college we would have, or people would ask for post-mortems after shows, particularly, where they would sort of debrief about the entire show, about what went well, what didn't, what are opportunities for growth and stuff. And so I, at the end of my internship process, wanted to, I really, having the amazing opportunity to work at the Goodman and work with, professionals in the field, I wanted their opinion on my work and areas that I could improve on and things that I had done well. And so it was also an opportunity to ask any withstanding questions that I still had from the process.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, especially having the guts to go ahead and ask for that. That's something that I think more people should do, because you're always learning. There's always something that you can improve on. And it's just another thing that people are going to remember you by, because not everyone asks for a postmortem. So especially from somebody who is at that learning point and with an internship.
And the more you can talk to people, and sometimes it takes people 2 or 3 times. And, I work with them, and they work with interns all the time. So I'm sure they would have remembered me a little bit, but the more you can be in conversation with people, the more you can have those connections, the deeper your relationship becomes, and the more likely they are to think of you for things.
Exactly. Yeah. So what's your favorite part of stage management?
Oh boy. I've gotten this question a couple times at interviews, framed as which part of the process is your favorite? And so I like my favorite is the first day, when it's the excitement of everybody's coming in, and you have everything ready for them. You've got their calendars and stuff, and all the paperwork is done. I'm a huge just paperwork. People ask me that in interviews sometimes. They're like, do you like paperwork? I'm like, probably wouldn't be doing this if I did. But yeah, like that moment of like, I've got all your paperwork and we're going to meet each other and we're going to have a fun time together is super. I also really enjoy tech personally. It's sort of like where, especially where the assistant stage manager sort of comes into their element and is like, all right, this is how it's going to go down backstage. And yeah, it just feels good.
Yeah. Tech is one of those things where I feel like, for me at least, it was either the most amazing experience or just
worse.
Absolutely awful.
Yeah. It can go either way.
Yeah. It's one of those things where you come out of this is like, did I know how to do anything? Like, what?
And you go home at night, like, I'm not sure if I did anything right.
Yeah. Then later they'll be like, oh, that was amazing. It was great.
Yeah. And it all comes together and it's amazing. And then you're running the show and it's up and you did it. And like, what a great sense of accomplishment from going from like, we don't really know what's going on, everything is changing, to like, we're doing it. The show, we reproduce every night.
Theater is so humbling in that way. It's you're always restarting. Like, a show closes and you start over from scratch again with the next show. And it's one of those things where it's like, if you don't keep up with your own like craft, it can feel challenging to get back into it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So before we finish up the interview, one of the questions I like to ask everybody is, what advice would you have for younger Aryn as she is getting ready for college and high school? What advice would you have?
I think, and this is not specifically maybe to a path in theater or like a path in stage management or acting, whatever, but I think just like being open to whatever comes, and not feeling like I have to lock myself into any certain path. Because I certainly in high school, and again, things that I'm working on in therapy, I always thought that there was like a very clear path, a very clear 1, 2, 3 step process of like how to get to the life part of things. Like I was like, I'm going to go to high school, I'm going to intern at DTC, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to intern at the Goodman, and then I'm going to be a professional actor. I'm going to be a professional stage manager. I mean, I went into college not thinking anything about stage management. I didn't know what stage management was in high school. We didn't have any sort of program like that. And so like just being open to that opportunity that came, and like even within stage management, I was speaking with a New York stage manager last fall about like sort of his ideas of advice as well. And he one of the things that he said to me that stuck out the most was like, there's never really a right answer to something when you have a hard choice about like, do I take this show, or should I do this learning opportunity, or, you know, whatever. Like, just be open to what happens, and like, it'll sort itself out. You don't have to know 10 steps ahead, 15 steps ahead. You just have to make the choice that seems right to you in the moment. Yeah.
Well, Aryn, this has been wonderful.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So excited to like just see where you are in life, and I'm very proud as a fellow stage manager to see how much you've grown and continue to do amazing things.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people can really learn from your path when they are approaching their own path. Viewers out there, like, look at what Aryn did. Like, seek out those internships, talk to people, make sure that you are constantly learning and improving, and just have that confidence to go out there and put yourself on the line to try something new. Thank you so much, Aryn. We really appreciate everything. Remember out there, viewers, that Dallas Summer Musical is a resource for you. If you need anything, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. We'll definitely help you all out. Or send us an email. We really want to be available for you at this time, especially when it's so hard out right now, when there's a lot of different challenges that we're all facing and learning and growing together. DSM wants to be there for you. So see you next week. Bye-bye.